Everyone, and thank you for joining us on air and streaming on KARE 11 Plus. I'm Jason Hackett with Alicia Lewis this morning. I was wondering what that tickle in my throat was. Apparently that's spring fever.
Oh, I thought I got you sick. I was like, oh no, you're sick too? Great.
She's been hacking up a lung all morning. It's been great.
No, it's good to be back, John. I love seeing my kids. They give me the hugs, the kisses. I miss them.
And
the sickness. All right, let's get to John.
I was trying to talk to you.
Oh,
we come
hey,
back
bud.
and you take us all out. We appreciate it. I actually have a tickle in my throat too. So thanks a lot, Alicia. Welcome back. Kids are the best. All right, let's get outside. It is warm, 35, 34 Mankato. We are well above freezing, and that's huge because I really don't want freezing drizzle. Because anytime you're above 32, you cannot have freezing drizzle. It's regular drizzle. Even if it's snowing, I'm not worried about it. We're very lucky to be there. I had a couple people trying to send me the lunar eclipse, which is still happening for another couple of minutes. And it is orange and red, but we have fog to the north, clouds to the south. A little unlucky here this morning. Temperatures today, we're going to make it into the upper 40s. I think we could hit 50, maybe 49. We're going to be right there. Temperatures warming, light winds. So despite not being able to see the lunar eclipse, travel looks pretty good this morning, Cece. Morning.
Good morning. Yeah, John was previewing some conditions, some wet road conditions possibly later in the week. I'll keep my eye on that. For now, things look really great across the Twin Cities metro here. This is a live look here where 94 meets Highway 280. Traffic starting to pick up slightly, but nothing where you need to change your route. Still crash free this morning too. We'll have more on some drive times, some gas prices. We'll talk about everything over the next hour.
Cece, thank you. We'll check back soon. Developing overnight new evacuation orders for non-emergency personnel across the Middle East after increasing attacks there.
Yeah, Audrey Russo's at the live desk with the latest as fighting enters day 4, Audrey.
Yeah, federal lawmakers are getting their first briefing on Operation Epic Fury today after several days of this going on in the Middle East. We just got this video in overnight where you can see a missile getting intercepted over Tel Aviv. It's a little bit dark, but you can see it right there. Now, it's become so dangerous that the U.S. State Department released this video message last night telling U.S. citizens in more than a dozen countries to get out. Now, including Saudi Arabia, that is where the U.S. Embassy was hit by drones. Now, today's briefing on Capitol Hill will start with the Senate at 2:30 our time. Then, after about an hour and a half, the House will get the same information. And in the last 24 hours, we've heard disagreement along party lines over whether the U.S. was truly in imminent danger when President Trump made the call to start the airstrikes.
It's not a declaration of war. It's not something that the president was required because it's defensive in nature and in design and in necessity to come to Congress and get a vote first.
There was no imminent threat to the United States of America by the Iranians. There was a threat to Israel. If we equate a threat to Israel as the equivalent of an imminent threat to the United States, then we are in uncharted territory.
Now, President Trump pushed back on social media, writing that the Democratic Party has lost its way here in this Truth Social post. Right now, we know that the death toll of American service members is up to 6, along with hundreds of Iranians, and this is all since Operation Epic Fury began this weekend. Back to you.
Audrey, thank you. And right now, officials at the Paralympic Games are closely monitoring the situation in the Middle East as athletes are arriving from around the world. In a new statement, the International Paralympic Committee says in part they're tracking any impact on the games, particularly when it comes to travel. The IPC saying many of the teams are in Europe right now, but the closure of airspace in the Middle East is impacting the arrival of some stakeholders. The committee says it's working to find solutions for those affected. Our 6:05 on your Tuesday. This afternoon, a new bill is being proposed at the Capitol, pushing for changes to Minnesota's child care system.
Harvey's Law in honor of an 11-month-old who was killed at a daycare in Savage. Megan McPherson's at the state capitol with more on this legislation. Good morning, Megan.
Jason, Alicia, good morning. Yeah, the parents of 11-month-old Harvey Mucklebust will stand alongside State Representative Nolan West here at the Capitol today. He's set to introduce new legislation named after Harvey that aims to strengthen protections for children in child care centers. West posting on Facebook last night saying Harvey's law would require cameras in infant and toddler rooms at centers that receive any state funding. Similar legislation was actually introduced by West last session. His DFL counterparts on the committee agreed to the surveillance camera mandate, but it didn't have support from the Senate as stakeholders raised concerns with the associated costs and how long the footage would be stored. Now, support appears to be building once again. A Change.org petition backing Harvey's law has gathered more than 1,600 signatures. I actually saw even more signatures coming in overnight. Now, advocates will also be testifying in support of this bill next week. And coming up in about 30 minutes, I'll share more about West's personal connection to this legislation. Back to you.
Such a tragic story. All right, Megan, thank you so much. Well, this just into the newsroom here in the last 10 minutes. Minneapolis retailer Target is reporting another quarter of lower sales and profits. The company is still struggling with high inflation and shopper boycotts, but they're sharing an optimistic annual profit outlook, saying that they're expecting growth every quarter in 2026.
A critical hearing today in a federal lawsuit over access to voter rolls. Minnesota is now pushing back, trying to get that suit dismissed. Chris Rapsky has more on the case's major implications.
So here's what's going on with the DOJ and Minnesota voter rolls. The Justice Department sued Minnesota's Secretary of State, Steve Simon, to get access to the state's full voter registration list. Why? Well, the DOJ says it needs to ensure compliance with federal election laws like the National Voter Registration Act, the Civil Rights Act of 1960, etc. They want to ensure that the voter rolls are accurate and up to date and free of fraud. They argue the law allows them to check this. Minnesota said, State officials say they already provide public voter data, but to give over the private stuff like driver's license numbers, social security numbers, addresses, how frequently every Minnesotan votes would be against state and federal law, they argue. Simon says he believes the Trump administration is seeking to use this data to further sow confusion and doubt into a state that is top 3 every year in voter turnout. That's what he says. So what's next? A motion to dismiss the case is going to be heard Tuesday, March 3rd. A federal judge will decide the legal merits here on handing over the records. It's a big ruling on how much power the federal government has to demand voter data from states.
Now, similar lawsuits in California, Oregon, and Michigan have already been dismissed. Happening in just hours here, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem will likely face questions about how she handled the deadly ICE shootings here in Minneapolis. Her testimony in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee is being held to, quote, examine the department.
More testimony expected in D.C. tomorrow. Governor Walz and Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison speaking on the state's widespread fraud crisis. At the same time, Ellison is suing the federal government over plans to pause around $250 million in Medicaid payments. In a more than 20-page lawsuit, Ellison's claiming the move is illegal, saying that the funding freeze is arbitrary and the federal government isn't waiting for the state to appeal. Ellison is also asking a judge for a temporary restraining order to keep payments coming as the legal battle plays out. Now, ahead of tomorrow's testimony, our investigative reporter, AJ Legault, who's been following fraud cases in our state for the past several years, is going to be in Washington. He'll have live coverage starting tonight at 6 and tomorrow on Sunrise.